Committee in the North Scott FFA chapter. I will be leading the Pledge of Allegiance tonight, which also serves as the National FFA Salute. Please all rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please help me now welcome Tracy Lindaman to the stage at this time.
Thank you. I would now like to introduce Mark Ridolfi from the North Scott Press, who will be leading this event tonight. We are thankful for his leadership as we learn how to be a model citizen in our community. Mark has served as the assistant editor with the North Scott Press for 5 years. Please help me welcome Mark.
Thank you, and once more for our FFA assistants. Thank you to all for coming. Thank you for those watching online and on KWQC. We appreciate your attention to this important election coming ahead. Our mission together, candidates, audience, FFA, and myself, is to give these candidates the time, attention, and courtesy while they talk about their ideas for this district going forward. So thank you so much for being a part of this productive, forward-looking session. The format for this will be questions that I've come up with based on feedback from our North Scott Press readers, other folks in the community, and some questions that were filled out here today. I will direct the questions to the candidates, taking turns who starts. Each will have up to 2 minutes to respond. Shorter is always better. And our FFA assistant here will raise a hand when we're getting into the final 10 seconds to let you know. And I'm going to try to break up the questions so I'm not packing them so you have time to really unload your ideas. And then I'll start off with a question asking you to introduce yourself, and I'll wrap it up asking you for your best pitch. And in between, we'll be talking about things that have been on public agendas, school board meetings, and things happening in the district. These folks are standing up for a tough, tough job. These are the folks who are in charge of a $45 million budget to run this district. 25 of that is spent directly on instructional services. 19 million of it comes from property taxes, about 15 million from state aid and federal aid, including the legislative appropriation. These folks are signing up for more than 20 board meetings a year, even more committee meetings, town council meetings in the 6 outlying towns and the county, and the live forum like the one scheduled October 27th that you can see live stream from the district. Countless academic, athletic, and fundraising functions. It is a tough job, great big responsibilities, non-existent paycheck. So I want to start out, and the most important thing they do, of course, is look out for the 3,397 enrolled students as of this week, including 1,041 here at this high school, a larger number that's been here in a long time. Please show your appreciation now for the duty that these folks are stepping up for. Now get that out of your system, because your responses are best measured at the polling places and at the satellite voting that will be available here. So please refrain from comments, applause, and things so we can use every minute going forward to hear from these candidates. Sound good? Yeah. Wonderful. I'm going to get started with Frank Wood here at the end. And for our first question, introduce yourself. Tell about your education, occupation, interests, and experiences with the district, and don't worry about your priorities. I'm going to ask that next question next. Okay. Frank, get us started.
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank all the other candidates for putting themselves out there. This is not an easy job by no means, and Mark has already alluded to that, and I wish them all well. I think that we're all adult here and professional, so I think we're all trying to get your votes. I have been a lifelong public educator. I served 14 years teaching here at North Scott. At that time, it was the junior senior high school. Served as a teacher in physical education. Coached probably every sport that was here. took the very first basketball team to the 5-on-5 first year in '85, and Tracy Lindaman happened to be on that team. So I really appreciate her help for being on the school board right now. I also served 33 years in administration in 3 different school districts. Started my administration at Rock Island High School as a dean of students for 2 years, where I coached basketball and football. Went to Riverdale High School in Port Byron, Illinois, where I was the high school principal and was the only administrator in the building. And then I came back to Rock Island High School as an assistant principal and eventually turned into an interim principal my last year there in 1999. I was fortunate to come back to North Scott as an assistant principal. When I was back here, I served as well as the athletic director for 6 years, and I was an interim principal at Neil Armstrong Elementary for 1 semester. During the times that I came back to North Scott, I served as the mayor of Eldridge for 3 years, in which I got asked to run for the Iowa State Senate. I was elected to the Senate and served 6 years in the state legislature. With that, I see the hand raise up, so I will stop at that time. Thank you.
Thank you, Frank. Stephanie, welcome to the candidacy.
Thank you. I appreciate all the help tonight from the FFA students as well as the North Scott Press, and I too am excited to be at this table with all of the candidates this evening. My name is Stephanie Eckhart, and I've lived in the North Scott area for the past 4 years, but I've lived in the Quad Cities since 1994. I'm a native of Ottumwa, Iowa. It's a great place to be from, and I learned a lot of great family and community values growing up in Ottumwa. My mom was an educator of 38 years, so I followed in her footsteps. I was an educator for 23 years. I taught school in Bettendorf for 6 years as a reading and language arts teacher, and I was a school counselor at Williams Intermediate and Davenport West for the following 17 years in the school counseling role. I attended the University of Northern Iowa to get my teaching degree. I knew I wanted to do that after losing my father when I was 13 years old. I knew I wanted to be a school counselor because I knew I could make a difference in the lives of kids that maybe just don't have the typical household that we think everybody has, that we used to see in the TV in the 80s. So I decided I wanted to be a school counselor. So I came here and taught for 6 years in Bettendorf, and then at the same time I went to Western Illinois University Quad City campus and got my school counseling degree, and then I spent 17 years as a school counselor. And I did a lot of different things, including I was the coordinator for the 504 plans and spent 12 of those 17 years as a counselor for special education students. I have 4 children. My children range from 32 down to 13, will be 14 in 3 days. My daughter Addison attends 8th grade here at North Scott Junior High. We moved here when she was in 5th grade, so she attended Allen Shepherd for half of that time, and then we had homeschool, as everyone knows, during the pandemic. So I think she got a much better education from her classroom teacher than she got from mom and dad. So I'm excited to be here this evening, and I look forward to serving.
Thank you, Stephanie. Tracy.
Good evening, everyone. It makes me happy to see so many people here today, and including the candidates. All of us have one thing in common. We want what's best for the North Scott students. So I'm just happy to be a part of that. So again, my name is Tracy Lindemann. I'm finishing my first term on the North Scott School Board, and I've had a wonderful time. I feel very privileged and proud to be able to serve the community, and I'd love nothing more than to have a chance to engage in a second term. I'd like to tell you a little bit of my background about why I think I would be a good candidate. My life as a Lancer started in McCausland. I grew up in McCausland. I attended Virgil Grissom Elementary. My husband grew up in Eldridge and attended Ed White Elementary. My 5 children all grew up outside of Eldridge and attended or are currently attending Allen Shepherd Elementary. So we are lifelong Lancers at the Lindemann House, and I'm proud to say that. After high school, I got my degree in secondary math education at Northeast Missouri State. Shortly after that, I got my master's degree in education from Drake University. My husband began his training in Missouri, and I had the opportunity to teach at 2 different school districts in Missouri. I learned a lot of things during those years of teaching. The first thing I learned is how difficult teaching is. I also learned how incredible teaching is and what a wonderful experience it was. The last thing I learned was that I wanted my children to be educated in Iowa in a place like North Scott, and that's what brought us back home. So I hope to use all of those things in my background to help show you what a good candidate I am in the area of being a Lancer myself, a parent of Lancers, a school board member, and also, sorry, I lost my train of thought. I'm just very happy to be here to serve. Thank you.
Thanks, Tracy. Mark?
Thank you. I echo what the previous three candidates said, so I won't belabor all that too. I feel the exact same way. I think the opportunity to have this on virtual is great. We found over the last 4 years of the school board, last year especially, that that's a great way to connect with the community. So I really appreciate everybody streaming that and doing that. Myself, I'm Mark Pratt. I have 5 kids. This is my first year. I have 1 in each building, and then I went through and calculated it's going to be a little while where that's the case for me. So I have a freshman, 7th grader, 5th grader, and I have twins that are in 2nd grade in the school district here in North Scott. So I moved to Eldridge in 2012 and still live here in Eldridge. Great community. I grew up in a small farming community, and that's the pull that brought me to Eldridge. Just that small town atmosphere, I found I really missed that when I first moved up to the Quad Cities. I went to Bradley University in Peoria out of high school and got my civil engineering degree and started working for the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers on Arsenal Island. I've been working there ever since. So for the last 18 years, I've worked my way through the ranks there, and I'm now currently the Deputy Chief of Construction for the Corps of Engineers. So any types of construction you see on locks and dams or anything else that's run out of my office. So basically that experience has helped me to impart on the school board these last 4 years. I've been on numerous committees. I think I just counted them up, about 13 various committees on top of the board meetings that we've done. So a lot of facilities work. I provided some engineering kind of expertise in that, and also organizational structure and strategic planning. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. Donn?
Thank you, everyone, for being here tonight, and the FFA for helping out. Mark, for your service to the community. My name is Donn Wilmott, and I fell in love with this town in 2010, shortly after I moved here. I was born in Sioux City, Iowa. I was a Navy brat. Soon after, I've lived around the country. Spent my formative years in San Diego. Graduated from San Diego State with a finance degree back in 1982. Got the heck out of California in 2008 with my lovely wife, who's in the audience, and for some of the girls out there, the tennis coach for the North Scott team, and I'm very proud of her and the support she's given me. This is not an easy job, and if anyone's signing up for this in the community, please recognize it's not 2 meetings a month. You got to have a passion for this job. I do. This is about our kids. This is not about agendas. This is not about bias. This is only about our kids. And I show up to every meeting. There are times when I'm away. But I also serve at the state level 7 out of 8 years as a delegate representative in the last 5 years for the legislative committee within the IASB. In Des Moines. So I spend some time outside of our community as well representing schools. I don't know what else to say other than I'm a businessman in this community. I think most of you that have come to know me know the business I run, so I won't go into that in great detail tonight other than to say that too is a mission for me, and it's a mission to bring broadband to the entire community, and no better time than last spring during COVID did we realize how important that is to our education. I believe very much, I had a little midlife crisis back in 2006, and I taught for 2 years. I feel very much our best asset is our teachers in front of our kids. Thank you.
Thank you, Donn. Nick?
Hey, good evening. My name's Nick Hansel. I've been in the community for about 22 years. I've got 6 kids. Grant's in law school. Grace is down at Oral Roberts. Glory's at Oral Roberts University studying engineering. Hope's a junior, and my twins are sophomores. And just love the community that we're in. And I worked in sales and for about 25 years. So I'm really result-minded. I'm result-driven. That led to me wanting to get involved with the school board. 2013 to 17, Don and I served together. And I think our first project was getting involved with the junior high. I was concerned that there was too many study halls and did a root cause analysis. And I don't know if I was doing it right, but I was just basically telling board members and the superintendent is we need more teachers at the junior high. And we need to slow down our study halls and just get kids learning. And then I think the next project we took is we combed through the budget, and that's why we got the lab. We said, hey, there's money in there. Why are we sitting on a big savings account? Let's put it to work for the students and staff. And so we spearheaded the lab. I see some board members that helped do that. It takes a team. The last project, kind of remember, Don, we were here approving the renovations for the auditorium. You said, let's make bigger bathrooms. That was a good idea. Anyway, after that, I started Lancer Legacy with some other community members, and we raised over $1 million to try to build extras into our buildings, making our teachers and students really feel that something was special. And anyway, thanks for coming out tonight, and hope we all get a chance to knock these questions out of the park.
Excellent, thank you. For our next round, we'll start with Stephanie. And what are your priorities to the district? What compels your candidacy this year? What do you want to get done?
I would like to see, I don't know if it's better is a good word, but I would like to see more open communication among all the stakeholders in our community. I think that with the present state of our world, that a lot of people don't have trust for one another. And I think through open communication, we can develop that and enhance that so that we can all work together by having that trust factor. I think that's very important. I think when we trust one another, then we can get results in what we want to do. And when we can do that, when parents feel that they have open communication with teachers, administrators, or whomever they're working with, the school board, then they know when they can trust us that they can come to us with any of their wants and their needs, and we will listen and we will get things done for their kids. Because the number one priority for me is to make sure that the North Scott kids will continue to have education of excellence, because that's why people come to this community. Thank you.
Tracy?
I would say my number one priority for the next 4 years is to unify our community. And with that goes trust. Stephanie, I agree with that. I think that one of the things that happened during the COVID lockdown was that families weren't able to come into the schools like they used to. We didn't have open house, unpack your backpack, no in-person parent-teacher conferences. The parents felt shut out. And so I'm very excited to see things going back to normal. I had parent-teacher conference for my son last week. The book fair was going. People are in and out of the schools. It's starting to resemble a normal school year, and people are feeling like we are uniting again. It's important. Outside of that, I would really love to keep our momentum going with our building projects. I'm very excited about the Regional Innovation Center that we have in our sites. It's going to offer a lot of great opportunities to a lot of students and adults in the area. It's going to be the first of the kind. It's going to help our ag students as well as pre-veterinary students, diesel mechanics, health sciences, a lot of different areas. So that would be something outside of the uniting of the district that I also would like to work towards. Thank you.
Mark?
My priorities are, I want to ensure that school is a safe environment for all students and staff, first and foremost. I want to continue the work that we've been doing as a board for the last 4 years. I just want to continue working at those things that we've been working on these last 4 years. I want to work toward tracking academic progress by measuring student growth, where they're at the beginning of the year to where they're at the last year, not necessarily by standardized testing, but just by student growth. I also want to collaborate with administrators and teachers, in increasing academic rigor. Our goal is to have students graduate from North Scott that are critical thinkers. Set them up for success once they leave North Scott, and hopefully come back and teach here too. So I want to continue working with, I started the special education committee, continue that work. We have a presentation that's coming up to help parents tackle the IEP process. I think that's very important for the community. I also am on the facility committee. I want to make sure that, like Tracy mentioned, our facilities 3 to 5 year plan that we started when I got on the board, that we continue to build off of that and add projects and get the projects that are on there done, like the Innovation Center as well. And then we're also updating the 3-year strategic plan to continue doing that. So keep making North Scott great and sharing our story.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Don?
First and foremost, I think the biggest challenge that lies ahead of us is to close the academic gap that was created by COVID in the spring of 2020. I think the focus on our kids, their academics, our teachers, who are really the best asset we have. I mean, studies have been done, and it's not always classroom size, although that's a component. It's putting the best instructor in front of our kids, and it's a big part of why this board that's represented this community made some tough decisions last August in terms of sending our kids back to school and giving parents the opportunity to do a 5-day face-to-face education versus a hybrid or some of the other choices. And the community, by January of last year, I think we had 92% of our kids in school. So that remains, to me, the biggest priority. It's really about the kids. I think of some of the other things that we've done in the time I've been on the board. I cannot wait to see a North Scott swim team. It was one of my little pet projects, and I'll admit it. I had to take the back seat to the lab and some other things, but getting the Y on the board and getting the city involved, starting a committee within the school board to see that come through. I just can't wait to see that we have that, and I can't wait to see North Scott with a great swim team. But again, I go back to our kids, I go back to the academic gap that was truly created as a result of COVID, and that needs to be a focus going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Don. Nick?
Thanks, Mark. Yeah, these headlines are shared by all of us, but when you asked me what's my priority, I would not have known until just a few months ago. It started with the junior high school board meeting, and I was really interested what was going on with that school board meeting and why was so many people there. And it came up to be, well, there's a privilege walk, and there was discussion of you needed to be there. And so I'm like, well, then why do we have a privilege walk? And it's like, all right, well, that was in response to racism. And there was racism going on like crazy, and we had to do something. Well, that's why they had an assembly, and that's why they did the privilege walk. Oh, okay, I get it. But then I start diving into what's the root cause? Tonight, we don't have time to, we won't get there, of what's causing racism. But what I truly believe is there's a cause and effect. There's a cause and effect for everything at the school board level, all the way down to our classrooms. And I believe it comes down to resource management. You may not believe me or agree with me, but one of the thoughts that I have is everything has a cause and effect. Somebody proposed that we would have an assistant superintendent. That would take a lot of money. Okay? Somebody has to then accept that. I look at all these and I say to myself, how did that affect our students and teachers? My agenda would be getting resources to the junior high so that they can firmly believe that when they're in their classrooms, going between classes, in the locker room, in the bathroom, that we don't have to do that again. I don't think we're going to do that again, but we're going to have to put more teachers in there. I'll come back to this. Thank you.
And we will be addressing those issues later, so thank you.
Okay.
Our next question, we have 3 questions from our FFA students, and Caitlin's going to have a question that will go to Tracy.
Oh.
Sorry, Frank.
I think I can echo a number of things that the other candidates have already commented on. I think the trust and unity is the biggest priority for me. I feel that we can create great things if we work together, but if we don't work together, we're not going to create anything. Nick, you're correct. You went out, worked together. We got the lab. The lab has been a piece of a facility that has been looked upon by many other school districts and emulated, just like what we have. Moline and Muscatine both have something similar. I don't think they have it to the degree that we have it, because I think it takes great teachers to make that building work. Education has changed over the 47 years that I've been in. Starting back here in '73 when it was North Scott Junior Senior High School, we didn't have an auditorium. We had one gymnasium. We didn't have a weight room. I'd like to see us continue build strong facilities that are top-notch and first class. That brings people into the North Scott school system. I also want to see us fill the achievement gap for all students. And that brings me to hire and retaining the best teachers that we can get at North Scott. The number one factor in student achievement is the teacher. You can get a great teacher with a poor curriculum, that student is still going to learn. But if the reverse is not going to happen, I can show you some stats on that. But I think I'd like to see us build on the successes that we've already had. If you take a look at the ag, the lab, and what our fine arts and athletic programs have done, we can have this as the top school in the state as well, nationally ranked.
Very good. Stephanie, did we get you? Okay, I want to make sure I'm getting everybody, keeping track. Now we will move to the FFA question, and Tracy will start this one. Kayla?
Yeah, so I heard from some of you guys about your group project, but I'd like to hear more. So collaboration is a keystone of board work, and so please share some effective collaboration in the workplace or as well as your community project. And then have you also had other leadership positions in your guys' lives?
Yes, as Mark mentioned, I'm on numerous committees in my role as a school board member. Some of which are the curriculum cabinet, negotiations, health insurance, strategic planning, and every year we have the option to switch committees. So those cycle around, and I feel like it's taught me a lot. I'm a lifelong learner, so I enjoy learning new aspects of being on school board. Finance alone is a major thing to learn about. I'm involved in other community organizations that I have leadership roles in. I am a member of the North Scott Educational Foundation, and we provide scholarships for North Scott students. I learned so much about our students and all the wonderful activities they're in and how intelligent they all are. As to date, we have given over $1.5 million in scholarships to North Scott students, and that's also including students in the trades, and in community college or in a traditional four-year college. I have membership roles also in an organization called North Scott Rotary Club. I'm a vice president there. I have been on numerous committees. I just recently helped with a harvest festival we have out at the Pumpkin Patch for underprivileged children. It's an amazing experience. I feel like I've learned a lot about all different parts of the North Scott community by being involved in numerous organizations. And every now and then we overlap. Like our North Scott Rotary Club is going to provide readers for elementary schools in the North Scott district. It's called Rotary Reads. So there are two of my groups that are overlapping. I feel very lucky to be able to serve in a lot of different organizations. Thank you.
Thank you. Mark?
Collaboration in the workplace, I'll address that first. I do that day in, day out for my job, and then also for school board, I do that as well. Just working on the numerous committees that Tracy and Donn and I and the other board members serve on, work constant communication with one another and working with teachers and other staff to continue to make, tell the North Scott story. In the community, I'm on the North Scott Little League. You probably see my name. I've been on the Little League board for 8 years now, I think. Also with youth basketball, and I've coached Lego League, so I've coached my kids in just about every type of organization they've been involved with. Feel very active. I just love this community, and I just feel called to volunteer. Leadership on the board, I said I'm on numerous committees for anywhere from facilities. We're on the teacher's salary schedule. Don and I were on that one. The YMCA, that's another collaboration effort there too between, I didn't think it would be as challenging, but we have two entities that have a common goal, and there's still a lot of legal work that you have to go through. So that took a lot of collaboration to get the Y constructed. So kudos to everybody that was involved in that project and is still involved in that project. And then at work, I'm on several national boards for construction, and also work with a wide variety of backgrounds, from biologists that we dredge backwaters for fish habitat to building lock and dam structures. So collaboration is something I'm very used to.
Thank you, Mark. Don?
That's a great word. I call it consensus building. And I'm happy to say that there's 6 candidates up here, and I've had the privilege, with the exception of Stephanie, to work with 4 of them in one capacity or another, either on the board or outside of the board in another way. At work, I manage by asking for input and seeking input. And while it's not a complete democracy at the end of the day, because someone has to make a decision, I'm also a type of decision maker that recognizes when I make a mistake or I deal with information that changes, that I need to also change that decision and move on. But what's beautiful about working within the North Scott Board has been the ability to bring together a diverse group of individuals with different ideas and sometimes opposing points of view, and to work through that. And what comes out of the other end with a consensus and 7 people involved, and I look back at the number of the decisions we've made, is, any one of us could have gone off and made a decision that didn't have such a marvelous outcome, but together we work real well. And when we've had split votes, and this community's seen it, 4-3, it's been over leadership. It's interesting. I mean, we've got a lot of people on this board capable of leading the board. I run a business in town. I prefer not to be the president of this board or the vice president of this board. But the few times that you've seen split votes, it's been over leadership, and that's a good thing. That means this board has a sense of dynamic tension that exists, and it results in excellent decisions. So I think I've answered your question, and just under the wire.
Thank you, Don. Nick?
So I was trying to think, what was my first time I collaborated? And I got to think, maybe it was back in my church, when I was leading Vacation Bible School. We had 300 little ones. I felt like a little North Scott building, all these little Lancers running around church and making sure that, anyway. So we did that for 8 years. That was fun. Then 2013 rolled around. I got involved with the school board. I think they tried to put a fast one on me when they said, Nick, you're in the policy committee. And so I spent a lot of time in the policy committee, but there's a lot of the why behind what we do in the policy committee. So like the boards that we're hearing that they've served on, I was on those boards too, from 2013 to 2017. At work, I was a sales manager for $23 million of revenue. We would manage that, we would grow that. I'd lead a weekly sales call. But also when it comes to leadership, you don't always have to be in front. Sometimes you can be behind and just support and help others cross the finish line. And I think that on a professional level and also here at the school, you can find opportunities to do that all the time. The one thing that I'd want to point out, though, that I'm not number one. When it comes to leadership, I know that I serve a higher calling, and I try to bring a humble attitude, It's something that I work on, and it's something that I think I bring to the team, is that, hey, listen, it's a level playing field. We're all equals, and look forward to bringing that back if elected. Thank you.
Thanks, Nick. Frank?
I would go back to my legislative leadership. I was fortunate enough to be elected to the Iowa Senate back in 2004. Served on the Education Committee, the Ag and Natural Resources Committee. Within those 4 years, I was able to become the chair of the Educational PROPS, which was over $1 billion worth of money that was allocated to all education facilities within the state. I've been the president of the Kiwanis Club, started the Key Club here, which is now turned over to the Service Club. There's been a number of things that I helped collaborate with that. Basically, when we had the Key Club, then the Rotary wanted students to be on, and the Optimists wanted their group, and the Lions wanted their group. So I said, why don't we have a service club, have it all together? And because I found out all the kids were going to all these clubs, and then you didn't have any time to have a meeting with them. So one meeting, you kicked one bird with one stone. So I am now a member of the Lions. I also supervise student teachers at St. Ambrose and sit on their education board. I've been the AD here, and I served on the Iowa Girls Athletic Association Board of Control, and had many blood drives when I'm here with the Service Club, so feel pretty good that we've been able to hit 100 pints every time we had our blood drive. So thank you.
Frank. Stephanie?
When I think of collaboration, I think of that I have always had to collaborate in many things that I do. I collaborated with my family. You have to just plan a family dinner when only one of your children live at home, you have to collaborate. But I also remember collaborating with parents and students throughout my career as an educator with IEPs and different organizations that I belong to within the school. I am involved in many different activities within our community. I'm currently a realtor, and you definitely have to collaborate with other realtors to get the dream house for each individual, and that is such a fulfilling job. So with that, I'm in the Quad City Real Estate Association. I'm a member of the Young Professionals Network because I want to be involved with Project Jack. And I got hands-on with that, and then COVID hit, so we have to get that back going again. That's with Tracy. Rotary, I'm in part of the Davenport Rotary. I'm the scholarship chair for that, and I also participated in the Youth Harvest that Davenport and North Scott Rotary do in collaboration with each other. I'm a member of the First Tee of the Quad Cities as a board member, as a parent volunteer. I'm a member of the Quad City Catholic Service Board, and since I go hands in and feet in with everything I do, I was they've asked me to be the president next year. And then I'm in the co-chair right now of the 2021 Go Red for Women for Heart Association, and this is my second year being the co-chair because we got to have the first 2020 virtual Go Red event, so I'm so excited to have that live and in person, and boy did we collaborate the last 2 years on how to put a virtual fundraiser together as well as a now in person, so thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Our next question will start with Mark. On April 12th, families, students, staff filled the junior high with concerns about a bullying incident there and the district and staff's response to that bullying incident. Assess that district and staff response, and how should the district move going forward?
You said assess, just, okay.
Assess the response to that bullying incident and how the staff intervened, and how would you like to see the district go forward?
Sure, thank you. I think when we were setting up for that meeting, I was talking to fellow board members, and I'm like, this is how this is supposed to work. This is how government works. People should be allowed to come to meetings like this and voice their concerns. And for me, I'm very level-headed, and I always listen to both sides of any type of discussion that's going on. So we were there a long time, and it was great to see the community be able to share their opinions on those situations that happened at the junior high and the high school. Moving forward, there was a lot of behind-the-scenes meetings that did take place that I feel that there's always room for improvement, and we are starting up a diversity committee and addressing a lot of the concerns that were brought up in those meetings. And it seems like every time we make headway with that, COVID decides to happen again, and we have to address that. But we are making headway, and I am pleased with the progress that the district is making as a whole with that, and understand that there's always room for improvement going forward.
Thank you, Mark. Donn?
I think Mark touched on at the beginning of what he said is school board meetings need to be a reflection of our democracy. And we were still, if everybody remembers, back at that time under a mask mandate, and the decision had to be made to move the meeting out of our little admin dwelling where we had been hunkered down and doing virtual meetings for some time and move it into the gym. So I'm glad we did that. I'm glad everybody had a chance to express their feelings. There was numerous issues there. I think it's important the community understands that as board members, we're one vote out of 7. And there's a longing or a yearning for instant gratification when you come to us with something, and sometimes it takes a considerable amount of discernment and process behind the scenes to affect a change. And I often equate it to trying to drive an aircraft carrier out of the San Francisco Bay. You got to line up and go under the Golden Gate Bridge, and you get but one try to do it right. And I think this board did, behind the scenes, a number of things that not everybody sees or can be privy to. It's personnel related, it can't be discussed. But we did do an act based upon the input we had. Trying to remember the balance of the question, and I think I've answered specific to the April meeting.
Yes, just assessing the district's response.
Did I miss any portion of it?
Assess the district's response to both the bullying incident and the tactics staff used to respond.
Yeah. The only other thing I could add to it is that a lot of members of this community have sent a lot of emails and trust that this board member, and I think all of my counterparts, we read every single email, but because we don't reply to every email and start the back and forth, doesn't mean that doesn't affect our decisions going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Nick?
Careful that I'm not taken out of context and that I'm pointing fingers and saying that anybody's wrong or something like that. But the community is not satisfied. The community is not satisfied with the district's response. There's parents that still are talking about it, and I understand things are done behind the scenes, but there needs to be, I'm results driven. There needs to be more. I mean, my wife is a substitute teacher at the junior high, at the gym class. The ratio is still 2 adults to 65 to 75 students. The racism, the biases, that's still being talked about because there's not enough coverage. I mean, in that little example, how can 2 people control the bathrooms, the locker rooms, and the activity of gym class? I think an appropriate response would have been more resources to the junior high, more staff, more counselors, more gym teachers. And I think that, yeah, I understand we can't, as board members, put everything out there. I understand that, but the community is wanting more. You have elementary parents that are telling me, what's gonna happen next year? And I'm telling them, hey, listen, let's get involved. Let's not complain. Let's volunteer. When's the last time you volunteered at the junior high? Let me know, I'll go with you. When's the last time you had a conversation with the principals? When's the last time? There can be more done. And I know I can be taken out of context here and saying that I'm pointing fingers and these people did something wrong. That's not the case, but I would say that there would be more that I would do. Okay.
Thank you, Nick. Frank?
Well, I just remember hearing about it and talking to some teachers and staff. I just feel that we need to be open and transparent with whatever we do with that situation, be respectful to the concerns, and work together to make improvements. I would analyze that situation, find ways to improve, and I think Nick alluded to some potential things to do, so that incidents like that and others do not happen. So without knowing all the facts, I think that school board members, administrators have looked at it. It did give the district a black eye, and I don't think anybody in our district wants that. So I think that we need to work on ways to prevent that, and I agree with you, Nick. It's very difficult for two individuals to supervise 65 to 70 kids. I was a PE teacher here, and I know what I had to do is basically have all the kids stay in the locker rooms until it was time for the bell to ring and go, because that's the only way I could corral the 35 to 40 kids that I had. So there's ways to do it, but it's still very difficult. So I think that we just need to be open and look for ways to improve situations.
Thank you. Stephanie?
I agree with Frank on almost everything he just said. I was going to just reflect on my time in education, and what we have to do is a lot of times parents, again, have to trust us that the behind-the-scenes actions are taking place and that we are working for the best result for your children. And unfortunately, we can't share everything that goes on behind the scenes, especially to protect the privacy of all the individuals that are there. So what I would want to see continued response for again, the open communication among the parents and the administrators and the teachers, so that we can improve. And I agree that we can have many different ways to improve things at the junior high. Thank you.
Thank you. Tracy?
I feel like the climate of our country led to some of the situations at the junior high. I think that we've been in a state of unrest. And I think that what everybody can learn is to teach kindness and compassion. And if the adults can do that, the kids can do that. I feel like I know that everybody on the school board and every teacher, administrator, and parent wants every child in this school to feel safe, welcome, and respected. And if we act that way, our kids will learn that from our example. I echo a lot of what Mark and Donn said. A lot of things were discussed behind the scenes, the number of meetings we had, the communication we had. We tried our best to solve the problems that were happening. I think communication, we mentioned that earlier, and trust came into play. Parents need to be communicated to about what's going on with their children at school. The parents need to trust that things are done correctly at school. If we can communicate and trust and then show kindness to each other, I think that we can make some ground and hopefully have fewer of these incidences and work towards a better climate at school. Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy. Our next question will begin with Donn, and I'm following up here. The district mission statement includes a goal to produce graduates with the capacity to be successful in a changing world. Not the world we have now, the one that's changed and the one that's coming ahead. The district's AEA partner by state law says that its own standards and service include the mission of providing services that support multicultural, gender-fair practices in school programs, and to make sure that schools are free from discrimination and incorporate strategies related to responsibilities, rights, and respect for diversity. That's in the state code for our AEA sponsor, and the mission here is to make our students ready for a changing world. How would you ensure that our schools are implementing multicultural, gender-fair education?
Can you repeat the last part, Mark?
Yes. How would you ensure our schools are implementing multicultural, gender-fair education in accordance with those goals?
We're all parents. I doubt that there's a person in this room that hasn't been a parent of a young child, is now a grandparent, or still actively a parent. And Tracy touched on 3 words, and they're absolutely true. Every student that walks through our doors should feel welcomed. Every student that walks through our doors should feel safe. And every student that walks through our doors should feel respected. That said, is a foundation there isn't anything this board's gonna do or act upon that would break the standing laws. So there are laws that come down from legislation. Sometimes, you know, people, I get back to that instant gratification, you know, and we see it in our community more so than we ever have before. It's the media, it's social media, and, you know, groups come down and they want that instant gratification. And if you take the fact that we want our students to feel welcome, safe, and respected in the classroom uniformly, and that we're not gonna, as a school district, break a law, there's some things that come up, and we've heard about them, and I don't wanna go into, you know, talking about details about the restroom or the this or the that, but please recognize that some of the focus and frustration needs to be with our legislators, both at the state and federal level, that we're not gonna break the law. So I hope I've answered your question. I was the first one to give it around, and I'm sure everybody will interpret it differently, but I wanna respect the 2 minutes and let us move on.
Thank you. Nick?
Yeah, I like that question a lot because I kind of think about, man, how would that work? And I think back on our 4 years that I was with you, Donn, on school board, 2013 to 17, I would have had those diversity and inclusion committees. I'd actually have them present to the board members. That never happened. I don't think it's happening enough. I mean, sure, you want to throw it in a classroom and let the teachers sink or swim with it? Bring it to the board. Have presentations on a monthly basis. Why not? Why not talk about it? It can get you hurt. It can get you in trouble. We need to know how to handle it. We need to know how to talk about it. It can cost you your job if you don't know how to handle it. It can cost you your character if you don't know how to handle it. And we need to know how to talk about this stuff because our kids are learning from the cancel culture. Our kids are learning from TikTok. We need to take a leadership role in this and allow our school board to take presentations. We need to get parents and we need to get teachers, students, and everybody to that diversity committee and really make progress with that. We can't stay in neutral. You can try to stay in neutral, but it'll take you over. Again, I'm a results-driven guy. If elected, I guarantee the school board would have presentations on this frequently and discussions about it. And we'd have it out in the open, not behind closed doors or behind the scenes. We'd really get to work on it. Thank you.
Thank you. Frank?
I agree with both Don's statement. Our legislators, both federal and state, own a lot of this, and I have actually seen laws and how they come about. And the intent of the law is really never written word for word. They kind of wordsmith it, put it together, and they expect people to follow it. The school board has two things. They have to follow the laws, both state and federal, and they can make board policy. When you start talking about multicultural, I know the district has brought in several specialists in these areas and have given workshops to our staff. But I think we could do more and give them more resources and more training because our world is ever changing and things have changed over the years. We need to be up in front. Thank you.
Stephanie?
It's amazing to me how our world has changed in just the 4 years that I've been out of education behind the scenes. So this one's a tough question, but I do think we do need to have transparency and know what our teachers are being expected to teach in the classroom. So I like Nick's idea of maybe being the guinea pig for them to come and teach to the board and show some of the different ways that we can show respect for diversity. There's many different ways that we are diverse in our country. It's not all about race, gender, sex, and skin color. So there's so many different ways that we can show respect for diversity. I think the number one way that we could do that is just show equity to all the individuals in our schools. And that's a tough task too, but I think that the people in our community are willing to put forth the effort to get that done. Thank you.
Thanks. Tracy?
I agree, the world is ever changing, and I think it would be very difficult to be a child in today's world. You're being bombarded with social media, things that confuse you and scare you, and sometimes kids act out. They do need to be educated on diversity. But I agree with Stephanie. Diversity, to me, is every single thing that makes us different. We're all diverse from each other. A diverse situation might be a female in a male-dominated workplace. It might be someone of a different color. It might be someone with an intellectual disability. Again, I think if we can teach our children to be kind and compassionate to all people, then we can battle some of these issues that we're having in school. Our diversity committee the district-wide diversity committee is being assembled as we speak. And we're trying to make it diverse with different types of people, with different backgrounds, different ages. And their goal is to help our schools to adjust to this changing world. Thank you.
Mark.
Wow, a lot of good stuff's been said tonight. For this, I go back to, my feelings for kids that go through North Scott schools is to, like I said, have them be successful in life once they graduate here. And that's part of critical thinking and also having empathy for other people and understanding other viewpoints. And in doing that, we, like Donn and several others have said, there's laws that we can and can't do certain things. Now, with that, we have a lot of wonderful teachers that we rely on to teach our children a balanced curriculum. And that's a lot of what we've talked about here lately in our diversity talks we've had, a balanced curriculum. Having empathy for other people. And like Tracy said, it's not all about gender or sex or race, it's also about socioeconomic status and a whole wide variety of things that make us diverse. So I think that's the point I wanted to get across. So,
Thank you.
Thanks.
For our next question, we'll begin with Nick, and I want to introduce Brianna Linwood. Are you ready for your question? These are some students. The FFA went out and talked to students in the high school to see what questions they might have for the board members.
All right, so some parents have shared concerns about gender, sexuality, and political discussions in schools. How should the board regard student clubs that address or are organized around these topics?
Nick?
So, thank you for that question. I guess when I think about that, when we have our group, whether it's whatever the student group is, FCA, Fellowship of Christian Athletes, or the inclusion group at the junior high, the LGBT group, you have to make sure that those groups are as welcoming to the outsiders as they are to their members. And, as far as I'm concerned, and some of the things that I've heard, is that there can be competition in these groups. Like, hey, why don't you come on over and join us? And somebody says, no, I don't want to join you. Then the complaints fly. Well, wait a minute. There's tolerance. If I don't want to join your group, it's okay. It doesn't mean I'm against you. I just don't want to join your group. And there is some of that going on, where some groups are alleging discrimination because some students don't want to join in, or a remark was given. And that's where tolerance and acceptance has to work for all of our groups. And so when I hear those stories, then I think to myself, okay, are we putting one group ahead of the other? Is one group getting a certain time of the day, like prime time of the day, and somebody has to meet early in the morning? It's a sensitive, fine line that you have to walk and balance. But I think that there is something here at North Scott to work on, that if I don't want to be a part of your group, or you want to be a part of that group, that's okay. That's just the group. That's not meaning I'm discriminating against you. And there's work to be done in that area.
Thank you, Nick. Frank.
First of all, I didn't really get the whole question, so.
Well, I can read it back to you. Some parents have shared concerns about gender, sexuality, and political discussions in schools. How should the board regard student clubs that address or are organized around these topics?
I think that we make it a healthy situation for students to be involved in whatever interests they have and find adult supervision to help guide them through the diversity. I know when I was here, we had a couple of different groups that came through, and it was a good outlet for students to be able to get together, talk about their different ideas, and become one, if you want that to be said. Again, I'm going to go back and use both Tracy's and Donn's three little words: welcoming, respectful, and safe. You want to give these kids an environment where they feel safe and it will not be bullied or chastised for being involved in a certain area. So I think we have to make it a healthy situation, and we talk about differences.
Very good. Stephanie?
I believe that all of the student-led clubs are a great asset to schools, and especially in the public sector, because it shows students about all the different clubs and organizations they can belong to in real life. I think those are three hot topics that are, again, like Tracy said, in the climate right now in the country. And I think that the concern is that teachers are putting input into those clubs more than what the students are. So I think if they're student-led clubs, like Frank said, if the teacher is just in an advising role, they're just making sure that the student club is moving along and doing what they want to do as the club. So as long as it continues to be student-led, I think that it would be a great place for all students to find something that they all enjoy and like and want to put their time and talent and treasures into. So I think that we should continue to allow students to have student-led clubs, but I think we need to be careful of how much input the teacher does of their own personal, outside of the classroom information, if I understood the question correctly. Thank you.
Thank you. Tracy?
I'm in favor of all different clubs. These student-led clubs are to be gathering outside of the school day, and they are required to have an adult sponsor. I think it'd be great if all the kids could learn about each other's clubs. It will help the kids understand different cultures, different backgrounds, different beliefs. But my only problem is if it spills into the school day. I would want, as a former teacher, I would want no disruptions to my educational plan because of somebody's outside club. And that would go for any kind, whether it was something that as a teacher you were supporting or the sponsor or not. The kids don't need any distractions. They need to focus on being safe and respected, and they need to focus on learning. So that would be my opinion.
Thank you. Mark?
Yeah, I agree with Tracy. We actually were going to be talking about this at the next policy meeting, just to make sure that those student groups do not interrupt the daily learning that's going on, that it happens outside of school hours. I agree. I don't think any group should be a closed group. I think it should invite, any kind of differing viewpoints. And back to my, we want critical thinkers in the school district that have empathy for others. We don't want closed groups where it's just the same like-minded people talking amongst themselves. I don't feel that there's any growth that can occur with that. Is, when you have to think about what you actually believe in, that enforces makes you grow as an individual. I think it's great. My daughter is actually on the kindness committee, and it's really interesting to hear her say all the fun things that they do, and just from a 7th grader's perspective on what they feel kindness is. And there's a lot of adult themes in there, but it's just really neat. I really appreciate all the teachers stepping up to be advisors on those groups.
Thank you. Donn?
A lot's been said, and again, we welcome clubs. They need to be outside of the classroom time. They need to not come into the classroom time, and they need to be balanced. We need to have the availability for people to set them up and participate and not be isolated to, as I said earlier, one agenda or a bias or so forth. But, I go back to what made me fall in love with this community. My incoming 7th grader back in 2010 and the junior high and the t-shirts, I got your back. I mean, let's be adults and let's realize it comes down to respect and caring. And that energy that existed in that building at that time, it's still there. It's part of our community. We're better than the stuff that came out last April. We're way better than that. And we need to be identified as a community, as a school district, by the tough decisions we made back in August of 2020 to put our kids back in front of instructors. And I'll go back to it one more time. Our biggest priority needs to be to close the gap that was created academically by our closures in the spring of 2020. And along with that is the impact on their mental health and their socialization. So clubs plays a valuable role. These kids are growing up. They need to understand the socialization aspect. They need to understand our democracy, and clubs bring that to the table. And I think I've answered the question as best I can, and everybody that came before me, I think, said similar things, and I'll leave
Very
it at
good.
that.
Thank you, folks. Our next question will begin with Frank. This school board has unanimously made in-school education a top priority through the pandemic. It has chosen to comply with the Iowa governor's order against mandatory masks, even as some other districts have instituted masks. Assess the board's COVID response, and what would you advocate going forward?
Well, first of all, I will say the in-school is by far the best education process that we can give our kids. I think it's very tough for students to learn online. However, I do know with the COVID, that was probably the only choice that we had. In supervising student teachers, I do it both in Illinois and Iowa. Illinois has the mask mandate, and I find it very difficult for those student teachers to teach with masks on, especially the first grade teacher that I supervise. When they get into phonics and they're working on word sounds and they're saying the sounds, you can't see the mouth move. So I think it prohibits the education or the teaching of those teachers. I think the mandatory or non-masks, to be very honest with you, I would like to make certain that as a board member we provide a safe environment for all students. By not having the mask, is that making a non-safe environment? I think that we still have protocols in place. I know that Mr. Studding puts out a response, I think it's weekly, on the number of cases that they have had in the elementaries and junior highs and so forth, so of being contacted with COVID, and the percentages are very, very low. After speaking with him, he's also said that if we have an outbreak, then they're going to have to do something probably different, because we don't want to have a whole bunch of kids coming down with the COVID. So I think the school board has done a nice job with following the guidelines. Unfortunately, I think that it has become very political, and I think that the education should be non-political. Thank you.
Stephanie.
I agree with Frank. I believe that education should be non-political. I first of all would like to thank Mr. Studding and the school board for their communication throughout the entire process, from the day, and was it March 13th, 2020, that you had to make the call on what we had to do. Your communication was, in my opinion, as a parent, I knew what was going on. You informed us. The teachers from my daughter's classroom were informing us, the principals in my daughter's school. I just felt like I had more communication that I deleted out of my emails a few months ago, that I was like, wow, they did talk to us a lot, and that was very impressive. I do feel this fall that, again, you listened to what the parents in our community were saying, and that you heard us, that we wanted our children to stay in the classrooms and be unmasked, because I think think many of us saw different things. I watched my 13-year-old come home every day from wearing masks and just collapse either on the couch or on her bed. And she was even ignoring her cell phone because she was just mentally drained from just all of just wearing the mask. So I feel that we as a community have done a great job. I do believe full-heartedly that we have to watch the safety and the security of our children, and if we would have some other type of outbreak come up, then we need to look at it through the medical standpoint of what they are recommending, not what our politicians are recommending that we do. Thank you.
Tracy.
I could not be more proud of how our school district handled our COVID response. Last fall, we were all unsure of how the school year was going to begin. The school board was unsure, the parents were unsure, teachers, administrators, families, and we were all brave and jumped right in, and we were the envy of all of the districts in the area. I'm just very proud. Everybody stepped up, everybody did their best. As far as masks go, people that think we should wear masks often tell me you need to look at the data. And we do look at the data. We look at the North Scott data. The national data doesn't apply to us. The state data doesn't apply to us. The North Scott data is what we look at. And currently, the number of positive COVID cases at North Scott exactly a year ago, the same week, are almost exactly the same. So the mask wearing last year, no mask this year, it doesn't seem to have an effect on our community. So it's hard to enforce children to wear masks when we really aren't seeing a benefit from it. There are plans in place if the district starts to get into trouble with numbers, or a school, or even a classroom. We have plans in place that might include masks, that might include some online education for a time period. I believe each parent and each family should make their own decisions for their family. Personally, my family has made a decision for my 4th grader to wear a mask, but that's my decision, and my decision should not have an effect on what your families decide. Thank you.
Mark.
I couldn't be more proud of the decisions that we made last fall to come back face-to-face from the get-go. I think it was, all the diverse backgrounds that we have on the board, it was amazing how much we were on the same page with this. Getting kids back in the classroom was our #1 priority. Just because we feel that, like Frank said, that face-to-face is the best way to teach children. And having 5 kids in the school district and having that spring when they're at home, it was a challenge to even motivate them to do 1 hour's worth of work. So I knew that, we need to get them back in school. And as we go through the school year, it was like every 2 weeks we check in. We had to be adaptive in what we did. And like Tracy said, we had to have contingency plans for just about anything that would happen. And to be honest, I didn't think we'd make it to Thanksgiving without being in school. And we went through the whole school year being in person. And as the school year went on, we got more kids to come to school from online. So I stand by, it was a real kind of like, what the heck are we doing kind of thing when we first started this, but we followed our gut, and I couldn't be more proud of what we did as a board.
Donn.
Having been a member of the school board for 8 years now and being faced with something that none of us had ever dealt with before, the actions we took last fall was a reflection of what the community was telling us. We listened. We took some chances, but we put in place the mechanisms, the measurements, the metrics to make sure that if something changed, we changed. And when we reopened school this year and made the tough decision, we weren't going to go back to masks. We're going to, again, follow the law, but we made the right decision. And as Tracy said, the numbers here in North Scott today versus a year ago with masks, there's no evidence that it made a difference in what our kids are doing. But what does make a difference, and it's important that parents have a choice, but what does make a difference is the words that a parent shared at one of our open forums last year. little Jimmy running down the hall, second grader, first grader, that social interaction that comes, and that excitement with seeing a fellow classmate and a smile on a teacher's face. I'm getting back to the mental health, the socialization that comes along with the academics, and giving our kids an opportunity to go to school in a mask-free environment while we follow the science and we're prepared to act if we need to. Let's measure outcomes. I'm proud of this board, and I'm proud of the outcome. Thank you.
Nick?
Well, what a question to be the last one to answer. Of course, it was great. Love being at school. We want to be here. This is the best years of anybody's life when you're 5 to 18 years of age. You want to be at North Scott. You want to be a Lancer. You want to be here. So thank you to everyone who played a part in making that happen. If it comes to masks and you want to wear a mask, go ahead. But the thing with masks, I guess I don't want, if someone wants to mandate you're going to wear a mask, I'm going to be pushing back on that. I think those people that are under 18 years of age have a very low hospitalization rate. And the vaccinations for those that want vaccinations are there. I'm ready for normal. I can't wait for normal to happen. At some point in time, we have to say as a community, you're ready, I'm ready, let's go. Normal is just around the corner. And so I know that might take time for others, and others are already there, but can't wait for that to happen. The thing about masks, and you may have alluded to it, is it covers the smile, it covers the atta-girl, atta-boy, it covers the emotion of the day. And then you have to say to yourself, do we want that type of a sterile environment? I don't think we do. So I'm like, hey, you know what? You want to wear a mask, go ahead. You want to get vaccinated, go ahead. You want to live on antibodies, go ahead. But let's be here. And I'll tell you what, though, any type of any type of a mask mandate, I will be digging my heels in. I think we're past that. And I like what I heard about North Scott data. Sorry about that. Go ahead.
Very good, thank you. We have 2 more FFA questions before I'll ask a final wrap-up question. I want to introduce our FFA chapter president, Taylor Mayhew.
Hello. What are your priorities for school board or school building projects? Plans are underway for the Regional Innovation Center, new softball complex. What do you want to include in the district's 10-year capital improvement plans?
And we begin with Stephanie.
That question, because I'm the one that hasn't been on the board or been in the schools. I am excited to see the Y coming to our community as a partnership with the North Scott Schools and the Scott County Y. That is a real excitement for our community. So of course that's a priority because it's already being built, so we can actually see that in the future. As a softball parent, I'm excited to hopefully in the 4 years that my daughter's there possibly get to play in the softball field that I'm aware of. I would, and I'm very excited to see the regional center where the ag building will be, because I, as a city girl, as I like to call myself, am excited to see what the students will be able to learn in that building with all the ag and all the different opportunities that we'll have for our students. I feel that the facilities at North Scott are premier, and in our 10-year plan, I am sure we will have many different premier facilities for our students to learn in, and that's what's amazing about this community. I remember walking into North Scott High School, it might have been about 5 years ago, and I just walked into the entrance, and it was bright, it was clean, it had computers showing student achievements on it, like pictures of the FFA students doing some type of project or a sports team that had won something. It was amazing. I'm like, I think this would be a great place for my children to go to school, and I'm proud that I have been given that opportunity now. So I am looking forward to seeing what everyone has for ideas for the 10-year capital improvement plan. Thank you.
Tracy.
I think we have top-notch facilities here at North Scott, and before I talk about what is in the future, I just would like to remind everybody some of the things we've done recently. The auditorium you're sitting in has been updated. The outdoor practice facility, so many children are able to access that between baseball, softball, they've done golf in there, football, soccer. So many children are able to utilize that. Our transportation complex, it's an amazing facility and it's in the center of the district. It's giving so much more freedom to our buses. We were able to put a propane tank out there so that we could utilize higher efficiency buses. And then the Y, like Stephanie said, it's an amazing project to be working with the city on and the Y. It's going to draw more families into the community and provide more opportunities for children to get involved in different organizations and clubs. In the future, I already talked about the Regional Innovation Center, and that's going to affect so many people. We'll be working with Eastern Iowa Community Colleges on that. We're looking for different funding sources. We're hoping to get past this COVID issue with supplies so that we can start to make some plans there. I also am interested in the softball complex. It's going to be out by the baseball field. They're talking about putting a great restroom, concession stand to have it for the soccer field and the baseball and the softball. It'll be an amazing situation. I believe we are working on orchestra expansion at the junior high. And just a personal plug for Alan Shepard, we would love to get a cafeteria in there. They have PE and lunch in the same room. It's very difficult for the faculty to turn that over. So that's something in my 10-year plan. But anyway, all those things are exciting, and it's important to keep moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy. Mark?
So I sit on the facility committee, and I have since I've been on the school board. And part of this, we work on the three, what we call the 3 to 5 year facility plan, and that also has a list, so it will include 10 years. We just kind of rack and stack the 3 to 5 year time frame. So in including that, the Innovation Center, it seems like it changes names every time, but it's for the same purpose, for ag, for CTE, for a lot of wide variety of things. And then, Tracy also mentioned the softball complex. It's more like an athletic center over there by the indoor practice facility. We're going to greatly upgrade the concession stands and restrooms for that whole complex over there. And also, in moving all these places around, we're also creating growth in the industrial arts. Back, that's what it was called when I was in school. It's now CTE, career and trades. But creating places where they can basically get an apprenticeship by learning how to do plumbing, electrical work, carpentry, anything on our grounds. So I just was at a welding council meeting where we're looking for welders, we're looking for plasma. Those are the types of buildings that we have the capacity to have on the grounds here. We also talked about every year we go through each of the buildings. Tracy talked about the multi-purpose rooms at Alan Shepard. Not also talking about what we want, but also how we're going to fund these with the least amount of impact. So what grants can we get out there through FEMA, like what they had out at Donahue for the John Glenn addition out there. And then also, like Tracy said, the orchestra rooms here at the high school and at the junior high.
Thank you, Mark. Donn?
Obviously, our facilities, when you come into the district fresh, are very, very much something to be proud of. And I think to take a pause and reflect on the fact that we all pay an extra 1 penny in our sales tax. We pay 7 cents and not 6. And to recognize where that funding source comes from, it's important, because every one of these projects that have been mentioned, we're all proud of them on the back end, but there's members of the community that criticize them. Why spend that money? Why do that? And, it takes some time on the board to understand school district finances and to realize that the general fund, which is the one that pays our teachers' salaries, and it's about 85% instructional, putting the best in front of our kids, which is the most important, is completely separate from the silo of funds that goes into the facilities and provides for the wonderful things we have. And that starts with the legislature. So again, there's some things we have to act within the law, but we're giving these diverse funding facilities for a reason. And the reason is we don't want to have to lay off a teacher or change the student-teacher ratio because we have a wonderful lab. You know, but I've witnessed this board work together with, you know, I don't need to repeat the number of projects, but work together with diverse ideas and differing opinions. I mean, I go back to when Nick and I served, and the first solution for the weight room was to expand into an orchestra room. And I said no because I felt, you know, on a cost per square foot basis, it didn't make sense. But then I also said no to, God, we're getting project creep and we're getting this big lab. But, you know, the lab in hindsight is a wonderful thing. So I think I've answered the question. I'm out of time, but I go back to the funding source, and I say that to the community, that please don't confuse our facilities that we're all proud of with the funnel of money that goes to our teachers.
Thank you. Nick?
All right, so when it comes to those type of facilities, that I started Lancer Legacy. Lancer Legacy is a nonprofit that works with Joe, the Case family, and a couple of other community leaders, and we raise money. We raised over $1.1 million to give back to the school district. We've given $250,000 for this renovation in the auditorium. We gave $250,000 to the new Silver Bullet. We gave $125,000 to the scoreboard on the football field. We built Kevin Tippett a football building. When it comes to facilities, we're going to get fired up and get that stuff done. We're going to go beyond that with the donations, and that's what I'm a part of. But what I want to make sure we hear tonight is that our football bathrooms are not ADA compliant. You find yourself in a wheelchair or some type of a handicap, you cannot go to the bathroom there. Those bathrooms are like 1960s and need to be remodeled by whoever gets elected. The reason why is it's a community center where we as a community come and just love each other and have fun, but our bathrooms are like back in the Stone Age. And it's been that way for a long time. And it's not, oh, Nick is just a football fan. No, that's track. That's field days. That's where we say to ourselves is, why does it look like that when everything looks like this? We have to, if elected, put that at the first thing that gets done. Because it can be better, it should be better. I mean, if you have a wheelchair, you got to go to Ed White and use their bathroom. There's no reason for that. And I'll hope to look forward to the refresh that we have coming up for the pit. You know, nobody wants to put money in that. Lancer Legacy put $100,000 down on that. So anyway, thanks for your time.
Very good. Frank?
It's already been talked about with the ag. I've been involved in that a little bit with our PP with the district. Jacob Hunter was probably one of the best hires that I can go back on in hiring and watch what he has developed that program to be. The pool is going to be an exceptional piece of equipment for us. I hope that we're able to use it not only for their high school swim team, but maybe we get the junior high and even elementaries in there to teach swimming. The softball field has been talked about. I'm going to be a little bit biased on this one. Best friend passed away, Hall of Fame coach Denny Johnson. I'd like to see that thing be pristine in his honor, basically. So I'm anxious to see. I've seen some drawings that Jason Schroeder has, and I'm excited to see that come to fruition. The barn, as I call it, the new Silver Bullet, has been a phenomenal facility. As a girls golf coach, it's great to be able to go in there in January, February, and have incoming golfers be able to start their swing and analyze it. The industrial arts is, Mark brought up, our trades, our industrial arts program has blossomed because of the teachers that we have in here, and I can see that expanding because of the fact that we're trying to get it so that they'll be close to getting their apprenticeship or part of their apprenticeship done. Both Dave Lindenbrink and James Simmons has done an outstanding job. They're not just building shoe boxes now or little things. They're learning a trade, so when they get out, they're going to be hireable. One of my concerns right now is that I wish there was a way to increase seating in the pit, but I don't think there's any way you can do that. I think we've done everything we can. If we could raise the roof maybe and put it out there, but that's pie in the sky. I didn't win that $550 million, so I can't help out on that one. But I would like to say in the future, with the idea that we are receiving more kids, are we looking at the expansion of our buildings and how we're going to be able to handle that expansion, especially with the building that's going on as well?
Thank you, Frank. We have one more question from Carly Schoenthaler with FFA, and then I'll have a final pass for you, final question to wrap it up. Carly?
In my elementary years, we had 2 teachers for each grade. I look at John Glenn now, and the K through 5 only have 1 teacher. This shows the decrease in students within rural towns. What commitment can you make to prevent small town elementaries from continuing this decrease trend?
Tracy?
Our enrollment is growing every week, it seems, lately. And it only looks like it's going to continue that trend with the open enroll situation with the Davenport schools, as well as all of the new construction going on in all of the North Scott areas. So I personally think that we are on the road to making John Glenn and Virgil Grissom more than a one-section school. I think it might be a process because we've had to juggle students around this year in particular because open enroll had no deadline. So every week we're still getting new students. We're doing our best we can to place them because we feel like once a student is enrolled in North Scott, they are a Lancer, and we want to provide them with the best education we can. So right now, we aren't able to offer John Glenn or Virgil Grissom to those open enroll students because those classes have reached the maximum capacity. But in the future, perhaps growing at the younger grades and then working their way up, we'll be able to get some of the smaller communities to have more than one section. And I think it's in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Mark?
You know, our small town elementaries, I mean, that's one of the many reasons why North Scott is such a great school district. These elementaries are just, it's amazing how the town just embraces the school and the town are just one and the same. And I don't ever want that to go away. Being on the trades advisory committee and with the student built home, we're constantly like working with realtors and other developers to try and get affordable housing in these smaller towns. And then I just talked with the mayor of Donahue last week. There's a subdivision going out there too. So there is growth that is coming. It's not like instantaneous, but all these towns are looking to expand and to grow. And I don't ever see an issue where John Glenn or the outlying school districts are going to be one section schools or any small. I mean, like I said, it's what makes North Scott great because you have that community pride in each of those school districts. Not districts, elementary schools.
Thank you, Mark. Donn?
I first off want to thank young Miss Schoenthaler for that question. I am quite sure her grandpa's sitting at home watching this with a smile. You know, what makes North Scott, what makes us proud? It's the sum of our parts. There's 5 buildings out there. Those 5 buildings aren't going anywhere. Was the dysfunction I saw over an issue, over something that was said before I got here in 2010. So let's let that chapter rest. We will have 5 buildings. It's a reflection of our community. Each of the 5 have capacity to grow in terms of, in terms of our enrollment and our growth. And yes, Eldridge will grow, but with Eldridge growth will come people that want to live in Donahue and in Princeton and in other areas. And, I've learned a lot over the last years, but, when I go out and see the mayor of Donahue and talk about what's going on in that town as a result of what's going on, I see that growth coming. And what might be a one-section school one day will be a 2-section, out in Princeton someday. And I embrace everything that North Scott is. It's not a function of Eldridge at the core and everything feeding into Eldridge. Our strength is a reflection of every community that makes up the North Scott School District. Thank you.
Nick?
Yeah, I echo those sentiments. We were in those meetings in Donahue when we were talking to citizens that your school's not going anywhere, but that chapter has closed. In fact, it's shut. We voted to put up a extra 2 classrooms in the building. And so that's kind of like a non-issue. When is it time to open up a new classroom? So that, you know, what it comes down to is parents are always going to say, I want that 1-to-12 ratio. Well, you may not get it. I want that 1-to-14 ratio. Well, you might not get it. But that is where you have to lean on the superintendent and Jill, who balances the books. And the worst thing to do is to open up a second class and then close it the next year because we didn't balance our books right. Because now you have an expectation, you failed to meet it, you failed to sustain it. And so as much as board members are going to say, yeah, we want to support that, it really comes to a balance sheet issue. Can you put it in place and can you sustain it? Because nobody wants to try it and then go backwards. That is a huge mess. And so anyway, that's my approach to that question of growth.
Thank you. Frank?
I think it's already been said. First of all, I think all 5 elementaries are viable. And I believe that North Scott will continue to grow. And I think it's going to be a planning session with the school board and administrators as to where the growth is going to be and how do we accept that growth and where do we put our students. We've got a policy in place as to what lower elementary and upper elementary class sizes are supposed to be, and the only way that we will not take open enroll kids is if we don't have room. So I hope that we can plan to make room and bring more students out to North Scott, because we have a gold mine out here. We have a diamond in the rough, and people want to come out here.
Thank you. Stephanie?
What makes North Scott unique is that we do have 5 elementary schools in 5 different zip codes, as I've heard people refer to them as in recent weeks. And that is what makes this a place that's amazing. As a realtor, I know that there's growth in this area because it's not unusual for me to sit down with 1 or 2 buyers each week, and they always like, I want North Scott schools. And then sometimes the issue becomes to affordable housing for those individuals. So I think as we do provide affordable housing in different areas, if we can find those places, we will definitely have growth in those schools that are only 1-section schools right now. Thank you.
Thanks. To wrap it up, I always like to wrap up forums by asking the candidates to give us their best pitch, but we had folks who asked it much more succinctly. Why should we vote for you? Mark, start us off.
I get the tough ones tonight. 4 years ago, I didn't have an agenda. When I ran for school board, I just felt called to serve, and I still don't have an agenda. I just want to do what's best for the North Scott School District, and I think I bring a lot to that. My resume and all my committee involvement and all the interview panels for all the administrators that I've sat on over my 4 years speaks to that. I'm an engineer by trade, so I love spreadsheets and all the number crunching, all the stuff that comes with it. But I bring a level-headed approach to any decisions in any of the meetings that I'm in with my fellow board members. When I speak, it's not off the cuff. I just bring a level-headed approach. And I would appreciate your vote to continue the great work that we've done these last 4 years. I would have never thought that the last of the 4 years would be COVID related, and it's like I want to get back to normal board work too, and we're getting there. And I have 5 kids that are still in the school district and will be even still in the school district when my next 4-year term is done. But I believe in this community, and I'm very proud, and I want to continue the great North Scott story.
Thank you. Donn, why should we vote for you?
Well, I'm going to give you a line here. I'm going to go ahead and tell you what I gave you in the paper, and I'm going to read it, and then we're going to talk about what's in that line, okay? I said quite simply, because I like to, when I put something in writing, keep it succinct. When I talk, I'm not always that good. I put, it's about our kids, it's about common sense and balance. And I said it's not about agenda and bias. Those of you that have seen my signs in the community, they're the same ones that went out 8 years ago. It's the same passion to come to a district and provide some balance behind the scenes. I've heard a little bit about transparency tonight. Sometimes serving on a board isn't 100% transparent, but you work with those that are elected alongside you, and together you make decisions that impact a positive outcome. And I think just about everybody in this community can reflect on our work the last 18 months, and it was the toughest 18 months of the eight years that I've served. We're better prepared to tackle whatever lies ahead as a result of that. If elected, and if I'm given the opportunity to serve this community in my current capacity in the school board for another 4 years, I plan to go to the state convention in November next month, and I plan to represent us as a delegate, and I also plan to run for the state board. I'm looking for other ways to serve our kids, not only in this community, but to provide that representation outside of this community. So I'm very passionate about it. My wife's fearful that if this community decides not to reelect me, what's going to happen with all my free time. Trust that I'll find some way to apply myself, but I would very much like to continue on in this capacity, and I hope you'll vote for us. If nothing else, get out and vote November 2nd. It's important. Thank you.
Thank you, Don. Nick, why should this audience vote for you?
Well, let me get into that. There's challenges that we've talked about that we have to deal with, how that gets done. But there's one challenge that we haven't talked about. It's vaping. I want to be careful how I say this, but vaping is a problem. In the junior high, in the freshman and sophomore classes, vaping is a significant problem that has hit my family. It's hit my friends, families, and when I walk through the parking lot, it doesn't take very much to see the phone in one hand and then a hit in the other. It doesn't take much to hear stories of, it smells like fresh strawberries in the bathroom. There's kids that are good at it, so good at it they get away with it. We got to do better than that. I mean, I'll give you a pitch to vote for Nick, but let me tell you, there's another challenge. We haven't even discussed it, and it needs to be addressed. We need to put resources towards that. Remember I was putting that up there? Every cause has an effect, and resource management is key. And how are you going to hit that challenge? How are you going to hit that challenge of trust? Well, I looked in the book of James, it says we need to be slow to speak, quick to listen, slow to anger, and I'd like to add quick to forgive. We got to bring back trust. We got to get to work. It's not going to get done just because you want it to get done. You need to get somebody in there that is going to make sure it's measurable, sustainable, and attainable. And I'm that guy. I am. And hope to have the chance to serve again, and appreciate everybody coming out tonight.
Thank you, Nick. Frank.
Well, I've lived in Eldridge for 35 years, half of my adult life. I've raised 2 kids, graduated from North Scott. They're doing very well for themselves. One's a teacher in Adel, one's a Davenport firefighter and an entrepreneur. I don't know what new job he'll probably take on, but I think he's had at least 12 of them since he's moved out of the house. I have 2 grandchildren going to school right now in North Scott. I moved away from North Scott 4 years when I was working over in Port Byron, and I moved back because I knew the education, the community involvement and the support that my kids would get, and I'm happy that they graduated from North Scott. I bragged about North Scott when I was in the state legislature. I had senators and representatives say, well, your school can't be doing that. I says, come on down and visit. I'll show you what we're doing. I don't understand why you're not doing it in your school districts. We are a leader. We're a leader in the state. We're a leader in this area. We have people moving into our district because they want to be a Lancer. I'm a Lancer, always have been, always will be. I appreciate your vote.
Thank you, Frank. Stephanie, why should these viewers vote for you?
I moved to the North Scott community 4 years ago with my family because I saw the school district here as a school of excellence. And I would like to be the champion for your kids in this community. I have committed all of my life to sharing my time, my treasure, and my talents, whether it was in high school when I served on student council, to being an educator for 23 years, to now all the volunteer work and being a realtor that I do in our community today. I promise you that I will listen and I will communicate. I will not be quick to respond. I will be one that will look for solutions to the problems that are out there. I want to be accountable to the community as I want to be accountable to myself. I, again, will be providing open communication and transparency because I believe in all the students in this district deserve to have an equitable education here, and our school is one of excellence, and I hope to be able to serve you as one of your school board members. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. Tracy, why should this audience vote for you?
I believe in service. And I think my background in education and my history with North Scott made this like a calling for me to serve on the school board. And I feel very honored to have been able to do that for the citizens of North Scott for the last 4 years. If the citizens of North Scott put me in that place again, I promise you I will do more of what I've been doing, which is working on uniting our community, listening and learning. I promise I will give all the time I can give and all the energy I can give, but more than anything, I promise to put our children first. Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy. That concludes this year's forum. Now it's up to you. Early voting begins October 18th. Voting will be at all your normal polling places. There's a complete list in this week's North Scott Press, and you'll see it again before Election Day. And there is also early voting available Saturday, October 30th at the library here in Eldridge. Thank you once again for coming out, and one last round of applause for these folks who have stepped up for leadership. Thank you.